Did Joe Biden's senior moments ruin it for older Democrats? A civil war is erupting in the party, pitting the old guard versus the new guard as a wave of retirements clears a path for younger Democrats. A Rutgers political scientist is blaming the former president, saying this is fallout from the Biden effect. It contaminated old Democrats. According to Harvard's new youth poll, approval of the Democratic Party has plummeted in half in just 5 years. And the first domino to fall, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin announcing his retirement after decades in Congress.
I think if you're honest about yourself and your reputation, you want to leave when you can still walk out the front door and not be carried out the back door.
This old versus young dynamic is playing out at the DNC with the party's chairman, Ken Martin, forced to rebuke Vice President Greg. Anyway, there's some Democrats. Watch this.
Voters should decide who our primary nominees are, not DNC leadership. I have great respect for David Hogg. I've said to him, if you want to challenge incumbents, you're more than free to do that, but just not as an officer of the DNC, because our job is to be neutral arbiters.
But the young uprising comes at a cost, and National Review is saying this. Social media is killing the Democratic Party, warning that swing state voters are not fans of the party, elevating left-wing influencers over coalition builders. But Pete Buttigieg is warning Dems to cool it with the woke finger-pointing, saying this.
There are a lot of people that I think Democrats are understood to care about, like
Yes.
low-income people, black and brown people are like disproportionately caught up in the economic pain when something like this happens. And so I do think my party needs to do a much better job, especially with the kind of finger wagging that you're talking about. I think we are like very prone to that. You get this sense of like moral conviction and you're so sure of it that you start to think it makes it okay to be an asshole.
Oh, there's the cursing again. We love the cursing. Jessica, they are old, but their ideas seem even older. Curious what you think about this decision. I know Dick Durbin's been there for a long time. Yeah. It's interesting that he's calling himself a moderate. I'm not sure that would fit the bill. Although compared to the young guard, maybe he is. Is that a problem?
I'm not sure it's a problem. Well, Dick Durbin's not running. Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay. So early in the show, you know, Dick Durbin is 80 years old, and I'm not sure that this would have been any different, this decision, had the Biden issue happened or not, or Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire clearing the way for, I think Chris Pappas should have a very good shot at winning that seat. There's a lot of young talent, and there are people who I think were considering their retirement before Joe Biden stayed on too long. In terms of being moderate, the most important thing that Dick Durbin did for the party was he was always spearheading the bipartisan immigration legislation and really wanting to get a comprehensive immigration plan passed. And I don't know who's going to take over that mantelpiece for us, but you know, I don't think all hope is lost in this. I think it's great if Lauren Underwood, who I like a lot, is the one that takes over for that Illinois Senate seat. I think it's a very good thing. I know the lieutenant governor is running as well. As for Ken Martin, it's good to see him kind of putting the smackdown on what's going on with David Hogg. And he says, you're more than welcome to spend money on races. You just can't be part of the DNC and do that. And a lot of people wanted that vice chair job that David Hogg got. And it'll be interesting to see what he chooses to do, to be part of the party infrastructure or to go out on his own.
So time waits for no one, right? It's the most bipartisan thing in the world, Kayleigh. And you did have the Biden effect, but when you look at the average age of the leadership of the Democratic Party, it is way up there. And so this is a little bit inevitable.
It is. And you're going to see these challengers. They tend to be younger. They tend to be progressive. They tend to be popular among Democrats, like we've seen in the polling with AOC. The end of what Jessica said there, I want to pick up on that. Ken Martin at the DNC. He's exactly right to say you cannot be a player and a referee. I worked at the RNC for nearly 3 years, and we did not play in primaries. It was a strict rule. You know, we are there to support whoever gets the nomination and carry it forward. So David Hogg is wrong in that sense to say, let's go out and primary people. Here's the problem for the DNC. They have a hypocrisy problem. A lot of people like David Hogg, perhaps, remember Bernie Sanders in 2016 and Donna Brazile, who wrote the book, who said if the fight had been fair, one campaign would not have had control of the party. She was meaning the Hillary Clinton campaign. She said it was not criminal, but it compromised the party's integrity. Elizabeth Warren was asked, do you think this was rigged against Bernie? She said, yes. We all remember the emails that came out that talked about Bernie Sanders' religion and how that would play in Kentucky and West Virginia. Even the New York Times called into question the integrity of the DNC and their fairness there. And then we remember 2024, where not a single vote was cast for Kamala Harris. I get it was an aberrational circumstance, but I'm certain there are young people, there are Gen Z, there are progressives on the sidelines who feel like the deck has been stacked against them, and the DNC is going to have to figure that out. Ken Martin's right, but you got to grapple with the past.
What about, Greg, the fact that the cover-up of Biden's age and acuity is affecting them? And I think they hurt the Democratic Party for an entire generation.
Yeah, unless the media doesn't write about it. Now, the way it's portrayed, they're all acting like this was a big surprise. I think there are obvious explanations for this that have nothing to do with age. No one wants to be in a party where they aren't wanted. Men left because they were tired of being the villain in every story. Where did they go? The party where it's okay to be a guy and the women do not have penises. It's a no-brainer. That's where you go. It's sad to see Dick go, though.
Right.
I think this is a blowback due to identity politics. The party became the awful party, the affluent white liberal female, where they identify every group. They created a hierarchy of grievance where blame and victimhood became its currency. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or 80 or 20 or 30. If you embrace this Marxist platform that life is nothing but a struggle between people with power, it's going to drive people crazy. Because we notice this in your Peloton class, in your book club, in the movies you watch. It's suffocating. People don't want to be in a world where somebody is blaming somebody else. And so what happened? The very worst thing possible. The Democrats became uncool. Mm-hmm. This is like the first time. They became the next door neighbor in Bewitched. Was it Mrs. Gladys?
Gladys.
Gladys. The Dean in Animal House. And then you have Fonzie, America's bad boy. You know, a mix of Evel Knievel, Don Rickles, and Godzilla, all in Donald Trump. And the more that you demonized him, the cooler he got. He became the political equivalent of a Hell's Angels jacket. You put it on, underneath it, you got a pack of smokes wrapped up in your T-shirt. It just was like, what kid wouldn't like to be part of that, as opposed to the party that their substitute teacher belongs to with all their little pins on her backpack? It is the Democrats' greatest achievement that they made common sense the essence of rebellion. And they anointed Trump being its gladiator. The wackier and more intrusive the woke-driven Democrats got, the more subversive stuff like plastic straws, gas-powered cars, you know, hot real women became. The Dems became the frumpy crone in the used bookstore. The Republicans became the bikini-clad woman holding a flamethrower. Who doesn't want that?
That's fun.
That's a good visual to turn to Brian on for a last word.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yes.
It was so split, but I don't think age matters. I don't think it's that Joe Biden didn't ruin older people for being the leaders of the Democratic Party. It's just credibility. I think that people know that he wasn't ready for the job. They got mad at you when you brought it up, and people covered for him. And now the media lied for him. Now they have no credibility. Joe Biden's gone, and they've lost the trust of the American people. In terms of David Hogg, I mean, he has never run a campaign. He has never helped a candidate. He has just yelled a lot about guns, and he's able to raise a lot of money. So he's being attacked not by us and not by people outside here. He's being attacked by people at his own party. They're calling him a twerp. They're calling him out. And I remember what Reince Priebus said on Sunday. He said, what would you do if your vice chair came out and said, I'm going to primary people? He goes, I would have fired him.
Right.
He said, I would have fired him. He said, you have some good points. I kind of agree with you, but you can't do this. That's not the way it works. Someone in charge has to has their deputy turn on him. And I would just say this. You just saw the most inauthentic thing possible to start this segment. It was Mayor Pete cursing, growing a beard, who took his pronouns down because he looked at the pie charts and the bar graphs and said, you got to be tough and you got to show a ruggedness. So he's playing dress up again. So to me, if that is what you're going to bet on, inauthenticity, and what Trump did today, for example, It just punted anybody who's concerned about age. Dick Durbin wants to step aside. That's fine. I don't think he's slipping. But does anyone remember they said Trump was slipping? This guy every day talks to the press for 90 minutes.
Yep.
He just sat there with the Prime Minister of Norway and just took every question all the time. Now he's going to go sit down with 3 reporters from The Atlantic.
Right.
If you weren't confident at the top of your game or worried, do you think he had to go talk to his, no offense, talk to his press team to find out if I should do the Atlantic story? No, I can do it.
No,
I'll sit
he
down.
doesn't talk to them.
So
Yeah.
I just think that age doesn't matter. I don't think Biden ruined for age. I just think he ruined for credibility because he couldn't do the job and he didn't tell us. He wouldn't admit it. The party covered for him, and now the media covered for him, and now Biden's out of the picture, and they've lost their credibility.
Can I mention one thing about David Hogg that Karl Rove told us today on Newsroom? He said that David Hogg has a super PAC of his own, separate from this, and he raised almost $12 million. And out of that $12 million, he donated to 2 Democratic campaigns. Where did the rest of it go? Operations.
Wow.
And one of the things Karl looked at was on the FEC report, DoorDash.
Wow.
I mean, the numbers are unbelievable.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.